the entire night. Before you is going to be a parliamentary debate. This is a 2-on-2 debate that clashes together with prepared arguments and also last-minute critical thinking skills. As a debater that debates in this type of event, you only get about 20 minutes to actually know your topic, and then you have to go into the room before a judge and speak. So it can be kind of intimidating, but the debaters that you see before you are going to be totally prepared, and they're going to give us a rockin' show. Yeah.
So in preparation of debate tonight, we polled speech classes for a topic, and you all have spoken or have not spoken, but we chose something anyway, so read it.
So your resolution for tonight will be, the United States federal government should colonize Mars.
This evening, we will be debating whether the United States should colonize Mars. My partner Elizabeth and I affirm the resolution. The United States should colonize Mars. First, we will introduce our plan. Then we will put forth 2 advantages of carrying out such a plan. You will be voting tonight on the plan that you feel most benefits the most people. Our plan is to develop and establish a mining colony on Mars, specifically a solar-powered, automated, rare earth element mining system. Rare elements are key to advancing technology, specifically green technology, which brings us to our first advantage. It's getting hot in here. The overwhelming majority of scientists agree global warming is happening and humans are a root cause. We are at the brink, at a tipping point beyond which, if we don't take drastic measures, as Stephen Hawking said, climate change becomes irreversible. Climate change is uniquely bad for the human species. Microbiologist Frank Fenner asserted that humans will be extinct within 100 years if we don't do anything about global warming and our diminishing resources. These 2 things are inextricably linked. In order to fight the effects of global warming, we need rare earth materials that are currently being depleted at increasingly fast rates. In 2011, the average price of rare earth metals shot up by as much as 750%. This is due to the depletion of these metals. These rare earth elements all play their part. Lithium is needed for, among many things, power storage for electric cars. Tellurium is key to making affordable solar panels. Neodymium is used in both wind turbines and electric engines. All of these work together to wean ourselves off of oil dependence that is creating climate change. When we begin establishing our colony, our mining colony on Mars, we will gain access not only to the rare earth elements on Mars, which will allow us to greatly increase the production of green technology, but the new technology itself will greatly increase the ability to mitigate climate change. The impacts of this can be seen through a metaphor. Consider the human body. We're considered sick when our core temperature rises above 1 degree Celsius above normal. The Earth reacts in a similar manner. Scientists agree. We are trying to keep climate change under 1.5 degrees Celsius, an increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Because after 2 degrees Celsius, Earth becomes uninhabitable for human beings. Not only that, but according to the Environmental Justice Foundation, over the next 40 years, There will be 150 million refugees due to climate change. Many of these refugees live in areas that will be displaced because they live so close to the ocean. Another thing that is so close to the ocean are our seaports, which we rely on for trade, which takes us to advantage 2, jobs. Look at what happened during the space race. Russia put Sputnik into orbit, a satellite that does nothing other than beep. But it lit a fire under the United States. We pumped trillions of dollars into the space race. Sputnik, a useless satellite, is the reason why we have advanced math and advanced science in school. We churned out engineers, scientists, mathematicians. We developed networking that led to the internet. We developed digital imagery that led to the selfie camera in your pockets. We put people on the moon with less technology than we have in our pockets now. When we develop this mining colony on Mars, we recreate the situation surrounding the moon race. We see the proliferation of STEM degrees and the massive influx of STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. With more people in STEM careers, we put ourselves into a unique situation to develop and implement climate mitigating technologies faster and more efficiently. Efficiency is obviously key when we are dealing with rare earth elements. The impacts of this are the same as our first advantage. We mitigate climate change. We do everything that we can now to mitigate climate change. Climate change is the single biggest issue we as humans are dealing with right now, and that is why you will vote affirmative. Thank you. I have 1:30 on the clock for cross-examination.
Alrighty. Mic on?
Yep.
Great. 1 minute, 30 seconds cross-examination starting now. So, Matthew, you've mentioned quite a bit about technologies that you would like to develop
Absolutely.
through this plan. Can you name any specific types of technology that will be developed?
Absolutely. As I said before, there are solar panels that can be made more efficient through the use of the rare earth minerals. And all of these rare earth minerals, which are being depleted right now, are available on Mars. And through that, not only will we further develop technology that we have now, but we will develop technology that we don't even know
Great. So I'm going to interrupt you because time is running out. But this doesn't sound like any new technology to me. This sounds like you're further developing existing technology. So I'm not so sure where you're going with this.
I am not as closed-minded as
but
that.
In addition, you've mentioned that this practice is unsustainable on Earth. So I'm wondering, why do you feel like moving this same mining practice that we're doing here on Earth, which you've admitted is unsustainable, will be sustainable on another planet?
Mining on Earth uses human beings, and we are specifically developing an automated mining system, so we don't have to put people through the rigors of mining, which is
Are
horrifying.
human beings a finite resource?
That's a really interesting question. Time.
Thank you. Alrighty, 7 minutes on the clock. Great, 7 minutes begins. Can everyone hear me? Great. All right, 7 minutes begins now. Tonight, my partner and I will be arguing the negative to the resolution. The United States federal government should not establish a colony on Mars. We will begin by addressing two very key disadvantages to this plan, and then the individual points within each disadvantage, followed by a quick refutation of why the affirmative team's arguments are incredibly insufficient and just really do not stand up. And I hope you will agree by the time I'm done with this. The first disadvantage, the first reason that the United States federal government should not establish a colony on Mars is what we are entitling space militarization. China has recently launched a satellite called the Roaming Dragon. This satellite has a robotic arm that is capable of disarming other satellites that belong to other nations. In addition to this, another example, Russia has recently developed a missile that is specifically designed to take out other satellites. This missile is designed for the purpose of destroying satellites of other nations. Now, what will happen in a world where the affirmative team's plan passes is that there will be an escalation if the United States acts unilaterally, just like the Cold War. This will likely be a similar situation. We'd like to call it Cold War 2.0 if we can. But this time it's going to involve more nations than the United States and the USSR. Because we see right now, already in the status quo, China and Russia, as I have already explained, are developing technologies that can be used militarily in space. We came so close to mutually assured destruction during the Cold War. More than once, plenty of times. And with the kind of military power and technology that would come out of promoting this type of plan that the affirmative team is proposing, by us militarizing space essentially, by sending these robotics into space in order to acquire this new type of technology, we would be even closer to this brink, to this disaster scenario. During the Cold War, if the USSR built one nuclear missile, the United States built 10. If the USSR made 100 tanks, we made 1,000. It was just tit for tat. It's going to be the exact same way in the scenario that the affirmative team is presenting. The uniqueness of Russia's missile example and China's satellite example that I have provided for you is that not only are these nations nervous, they're nervous about the United States militarizing space. They're not worried about one another. And we're not even doing the types of things that they're doing. Imagine if we gave them a reason to be nervous, like sending a mission to Mars. If we go through with the affirmative team's plan, it would, simply put, it would freak out Russia and China and put them into a situation where they feel that it is necessary to escalate and create as much new technology as possible to counter the United States. And that is my first disadvantage to their plan, but I'd like to move on to my second disadvantage, which is entitled resources, or even more simply, or I guess more appropriately, the affirmative team makes it worse, not better. So, look. This is what's going to happen. Even if we are just going to get resources from Mars, we're going to experience what is essentially a mindset shift, because now we're going to be devoting what little resources we already have, as the affirmative team has admitted, and now we're going to be taking what little resources we have right now to maybe get resources down the road. Maybe. This promotes a type of what we like to call a get off the rock mentality. Because rather than using NASA's incredibly large funding budget, billions of dollars, and capabilities that it already has, such as weather satellites, things that have been used to save millions of people in the status quo and combat climate change as is with existing technology, the affirmative team wants to use what little resources we currently have and gamble them all, rather than trying to solve and create a safe alternative here at home. And they're further promoting this unsustainable system. They've admitted that mining is unsustainable here on Earth. We're running out of resources by doing what we're doing now, and now they're saying that it's sustainable by moving to another planet and doing the exact same thing, and that's ludicrous. Now, some of my questions would be, number one, how are we using these tech resources that we already have in the status quo? How are we using them? What's happening is that they're being tossed away, because oftentimes we can't reuse them. Then they're further contributing to pollution and further contributing to climate change in the world as we know it today. Now, my question is, does the affirmative team know how hard it is to dispose the car battery of a Prius? It's ridiculous. Even with the green technology that we have right now, the United States is already consuming more than we even know what to do with. The affirmative team has already conceded that the exploitation of resources here on Earth is unsustainable. So my question is, what makes them think that it will be sustainable by doing it on Mars? We can't continuously hop from one planet to the next for more resources. What happens when we run out of resources that, number one, they're not even sure are there, but also not sure if we can even get them. But what happens when we run out of resources on Mars? Human beings can't keep spreading across the universe, destroying one planet of another, or one planet to another of all of their resources like we're some kind of space Ebola. Now, lastly, how do we get these resources that they're claiming we can acquire back? How do we get them back? On the off chance that we even manage to get these resources in the first place, we are talking about shipping millions of tons of stuff. This is not FedEx. How is this even going to be possible? The rocket parts are often not reusable. This is incredibly damaging to the environment to begin with, further contributing to climate change by burning the fuel that they're suggesting we use. And resources have to be collected once they come back to Earth, and oftentimes they're pulled out of the ocean. Now, in my closing right now, I'd just like to offer a quick couple of comments regarding the argument that was just made before me. And the first of which is the affirmative team has said that the United States federal government will use this plan and establish a colony for resources. My question is, why will other countries believe that? Why should they believe that? The United States federal government does not have a proven track record of being honest on the international stage. And additionally, they have not offered any time frame for this plan. They've said that extinction is likely to happen within 100 years, and they've offered no explanation as to how long their plan will take, how long it'll take get these resources back to the United States in the first place. And so really, we have no reason to believe that their plan will work out logistically or really even make sense. Thank you. I have a minute and a half.
Hello. All right, so my first question for you is, how many roaming dragons are there right now?
That is unconfirmed. We know of one in existence for certain.
So one.
No, we know one in existence for certain.
So one. Okay, so next question. How many anti-satellite missiles are there within Russia?
Same answer. One confirmed. We're not entirely sure what they may or may not have afterwards.
Okay, so one. All right, so this whole planet hopping thing that you just brought forth, are you saying that the distance between Earth and Mars is the same as the distance between Earth and every other planet in the galaxy?
That would be your argument, not mine.
But you're the one who put forth the idea of planet hopping.
The idea of planet hopping is something that you are suggesting in your plan as is, moving from this planet to another planet.
So that's your speculation, all right. Let's see. Do I have any other questions for you? As far as efficiency goes with the waste that you mentioned, are you saying that it's not possible for us to have any technological innovations in order to prevent further waste with our technology?
No, I think you're misunderstanding my point. The point that I was attempting to make with that statement was that your partner has already conceded that we have very limited resources, and yet you're advocating that we use all of these resources and gamble them.
So are you saying that in the face of all humans dying in 100 years, guaranteed, we shouldn't try everything we can to prevent that from happening?
I'm saying that there are much more certain, much more probable, and much more safe ways to do just that.
All right, thank you. Let's see, here it is. Hello, can you all hear me all right? Okay, so I'm going to be starting off by telling you all the reasons why the lovely negation is completely wrong, and then I will be going on to tell you why you'll be voting for the affirmative by the end of this night. Time starting now. So starting with what the negation just brought forth to us. So what they're saying is that China has one roaming dragon, one, and Russia has one anti-satellite missile, which may work, may not work. We don't actually know if it's a functioning thing that's actually going to end the world and bring nuclear war and mutually assured destruction, but let's just put that idea out there. And then the roaming dragon, which also could easily just be a hunk of metal with a fake arm attached to it. So there are these two things that are existing right now that are apparently going to bring us all the way to mutually assured destruction, nuclear war, and decrease in foreign relations. However, with my tone of voice that I probably just gave you, I don't see this being very likely, because just because there is one roaming dragon and one anti-satellite missile out there, the negation is suggesting that we should just drop everything, not try, just throw it out the window. But that's not the case. We should still try, because as my partner has stated, within 100 years, there could easily be no more humans left alive on this planet. And with that in our faces, also the idea of diminishing resources, we should take every opportunity possible in order to make sure that we can continue to thrive on this planet. The negation also brought up the fact in their second point that with us going to Mars and getting all these resources, everybody's gonna just freak out. They're just gonna see us go up there and just lose their minds. However, when we come back and bring these resources to Earth, when we start using them for technology, this technology is not going to stay in the United States. This technology is going to spread across the world. Cell phones don't just exist here. Cell phones exist everywhere. So do laptops and all the other innovations that have happened with the research within NASA. So as we can see, once we start sharing these innovations, unless you're a conspiracy theorist who doesn't believe in the world being round or that people ever went to the moon, I mean, you're welcome to think that we never made it. But with that said, people aren't going to be believing that we're going up there just to create and destroy all humans colony. No, they're actually going to see all the resources that we bring back and see that this is something that is completely necessary in order to benefit humanity. Also, with their statement about planet hopping, it takes 9.5 years to get to Pluto. After that, to the nearest star, which is Proxima Centauri, it is 7,000 times farther. So I'm sorry for all of you Stargate, Star Wars, Star Trek nerds out there. This intergalactic travel and destroying all the planets in our path probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. And also with their statement saying, with their concerns about how we get these resources back, with tech innovations and the development in the technology that will be happening in this time, we'll be able to find more efficient ways and be able to find ways that make this transportation possible. Moving on to the reasons why you're going to be voting for the affirmative today. So some of the points that the other team has brought forth today is that there's no explanation as to how technology actually helps climate change. But it's really obvious in current day. We have hybrid cars, we have wind turbines, we have solar power. All of these things are technological advances that make it possible for us to fight climate change. So in that, you have all the evidence you need to see that this technology is incredibly important. They also are saying that this is an expensive gamble, so we just shouldn't do it. But the other option is just to sit around with what we have going on right now and just waiting to die in 100 years. So with that said, we probably should take every chance we have in order to make sure that humans can continue to flourish on this planet, and also to find more ways to make sure that this planet will do the best that it can with what we have thrown at it. They also argued that we don't have a time frame, but I'm here to provide that for you. So there's a Dutch corporation, this is facts from theguardian.com, that are actually projecting that they'll be able to start their own Mars colony by 2023. So that's pretty close. And also NASA, they said with the proper funding, they'll be able to do this within 20 years. So this is definitely feasible. This is definitely happening. So the negation's worries about the time frame are completely irrelevant. We can throw that out the window. On to our second point as the affirmative. This is incredibly important for jobs. Sputnik started this fire, and now people are totally passionate about this idea of space travel, the innovations in technology. We have seen so many great pieces of technology, including heart defibrillators, coming out of the space race. This will be incredibly crucial to the development of jobs opportunities, because now more people will be moving into this field, and as more technology is being developed, there is going to be a need for more people to help this happen. We also will be aiming to create more efficiency in this technological advancement to make sure that we don't have the waste, that we aren't just throwing Prius batteries all over the place. We're actually going to be finding solutions to those problems. I also want to point out that this is a huge economic benefit for the world. For every dollar that NASA spends, $10 goes into the economy. Now, thebalance.com actually breaks this down for us. In 2005, they said that activities relating to space contributed $180 billion to the economy. Over 60% came from commercial goods, and space economy doesn't just include space. It also includes commercial space products, services, commercial infrastructure, and support industries. So as we can see, efforts made within NASA aren't just isolated to let's go to the moon. It extends across many other areas. So every dollar that is spent is a catalyst for a $10 economic benefit. So as we can see, these are all reasons for you to be voting for the affirmatives, because we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't just sit down and say, that's not such a great gamble, let's just sit and wait until we all die. No, the affirmative is here to make sure that that humanity continues to flourish on this planet. So these are the reasons why you will be voting for us today. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I have one question for the negation today. If a simple satellite can cause other countries fear, how do you think foreign countries will react when we send a bunch of robots to Mars and basically say, I swear they're just for mining?
First question for you, actually. Who exactly is scared?
Oh, well, usually when you militarize space, it decreases foreign relations.
But who exactly is doing that right now?
Well, the China's doing it with the roaming dragon, and if we do it, it will decrease our foreign relations with other countries.
Well, with all that said, I'll say that if we are completely honest and transparent with what we're doing and bringing back the necessary resources that are proven to improve technology, I have a pretty strong feeling that most people who aren't conspiracy theorists thinking that we're putting end-all humans colony out in space will think that we're actually doing good.
Oh yeah, because the United States would never use our superior technology to harm another country.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to first address the points that we made, and then I'm going to address the points that our opponents made. Starting now. If we use robots to needlessly colonize and take the resources of Mars, we run the risk of antagonizing other countries by implementing foreign technology into space, possibly leading to a so-called space Cold War. Yes, there is currently only one roaming dragon, but everything starts from something. At one point, there was only one nuclear bomb. When we ignore these threats, they only become bigger, which my opponents apparently can't see from their little bubble of American-centric thinking and everything's going to get better mentality. This will also cause space militarization. Even if we were going to gather these rare earth metals from Mars, which is highly unlikely, it would take a minimum of 14 months to even complete the transportation of the resources from Earth to Mars and back. Meanwhile, the affirmative is talking about entirely using up our much-needed resources to build robots, which eventually will just get thrown in the landfill anyway, as we have seen in the movie WALL-E. Where Earth is neglected and made into a wasteland while we live it up in other areas of space and we as humans abandon our quest to change Earth for the better. We have also seen this in many video games, including the video game Warframe, where we can see as soon as the conquest of one planet is completed, all we do is move on to the next, making us some kind of planet-hopping space Ebola, as my partner pointed out. Their mission will also produce rocket fuel, which not only would cost billions of dollars when the United States is already in debt, but it would literally increase the amount of carbon emissions produced by NASA already. Currently, rocket launches and creation of rocket fuel contribute from NASA to roughly 2% of the ozone depletion that can be contributed to human causes, and with more launches in the future, that number is only expected to rise. NASA themselves estimates that United States federal government space journeys have caused an upward of 500,000 pieces of space debris to be continually orbiting the planet. This number will increase, and NASA will add to global warming instead of using current technology to mitigate it on Earth. Instead of focusing on the gamble of possibly getting resources on Mars, we need to focus on mitigating climate change here on Earth, because both of our teams agree that global warming is bad. On to our points. On Mars, the environment is so incredibly cold that the only places even mineable are the volcanoes and the impact craters on Mars. It is highly unlikely that Mars will have any, if all, the rare earth metals that we will find on Earth. Because of the lack of microorganisms on Mars and the lack of water sources, most rare earth metals on Earth haven't even been discovered on Mars because they aren't there. On to the advantage of STEM, NASA will continue to create jobs in the STEM field whether we colonize Mars or not because of its billions of dollars in funding. It is also able to efficiently create green technology without colonizing Mars. The opponents have still not named what specific metals and technology they are going to create from those metals once we go to Mars to solve climate change, so we can simply assume that this is all speculation. And if we use NASA's funding to go to Mars instead of building the green tech needed to mitigate climate change, we are only hurting ourselves. If NASA is going to create solar-powered robots to search for rare earth metals, it would be much more probable to find earth metals here on Earth, because Earth has the guaranteed environmental conditions to do so. And that is why you're going to vote for the negative team today. Thank you.
I'm back. Alrighty, 4 minutes on the clock. Opponents good? Awesome. 4 minutes starts now. Tonight you have heard from both teams. The four of us have made our cases, and you've listened. The negative team, however, my partner and I, have made a case that is vastly superior. While our opponents have done little but kind of speculate on what they think may or may not work, possibly if we take a gamble somewhere in the future that might work eventually somehow. They've offered really no substantial arguments as to how their plan is really going to work and why it's worth attempting in the first place. And I'm going to tell you, the audience, why you will, not maybe, why you will be voting for the negative team tonight. The negative team has given you real dangers, real concerns, real disadvantages to the affirmative team's plan. And they've kind of just shrugged it off. The affirmative team has completely shrugged off the problem with militarizing space. They've simply said, oh, well, you know, China only made one of those satellites, and Russia only made one of those missiles. Number one, wrong. Number two, we do not know the number that they have, and they're already dangerous. Like my partner had already said, we started with one nuclear bomb. Right now, in the status quo, we have so many nuclear weapons that we cannot accurately calculate them. We have no way of knowing how many there are. We live in that kind of world, and we don't know what these things could do. Well, I mean, yeah, we do, but we don't know what would happen in the event that a bad actor, someone that we don't trust, were to get a hold of these things. Now, and I'd like to point out, they really haven't refuted this. They've simply said, oh, well, you know, it's only one, so it can't really be an issue. They haven't really offered an argument against why, or excuse me, they haven't really offered an argument to disagree with our point of militarization. Now, the resources argument is one that I found incredibly interesting, and you've seen us go back and forth on it tonight, and it's one that I'd like to touch on a little bit, because I want to explain to you in the simplest possible terms that I can what exactly it is that the affirmative team is suggesting we do, and just let me know if this makes sense to you. We're going to take what little resources we have, okay, stay with me. They've conceded that we only have a little bit of these resources, that we're running out of these resources, but they want to gamble all of them, in the chance that we might, maybe, possibly get more if we somehow, maybe, kind of, sort of, get into one of these impact craters or volcanoes on Mars, and maybe get some more that we can bring back here and use in the exact same manner that we're doing already, but somehow that's sustainable, even though it wasn't here on this planet. And I'd like to point out that their plan that they're claiming solves for climate change, which they cannot do, further contributes to climate change. They're wanting to make more rocket fuel and burn it up in the atmosphere as a way to gather more resources, which we do not know if they exist or not, in a way to create technology as a way to prevent the very harms that they're doing. This is absurd, to say the least. It really does not make sense, and I hope that the audience can at least agree with me on that much. I hope that you understand that what they're advocating for makes the current situation significantly worse than it already is. They're advocating a plan that puts the entire world, not just the United States, at risk. They're advocating a plan that endangers not only you and I, but people on the other side of the world, because they want to take a gamble with what we currently have in the hopes that, you know, maybe it works out in the future. Thank you. $130.
So, space militarization. Interesting concept. Do you believe we landed on the moon?
I do.
Do you believe we live on a spherical globe?
I do, in fact.
Do you believe in life after love?
I plead the fifth.
So, do you remember what we discussed when we talked about technology developed during the space race?
Might I ask
It
specifically
was
what you're
flat
referring
screen
to?
TVs, cell phones, heart defibrillators, all
Yes,
this cool
yes, I do.
stuff.
Yep.
Did that stuff stay in the United States?
No, it didn't.
Okay, thank you. The whole world benefited. Check. Do you know the percentage of Mars that is covered in volcanoes and craters?
No, actually, I
It's a
do-
lot.
do-
Is there any reason we wouldn't be able to use this technology back on Earth?
Well, in just addressing the comment that you've just made, my answer to which is you claim that we've benefited globally from this, and to
We
which I offer
did.
the suggestion that if you claim that we've benefited globally from this technology, then that means that we've also suffered because of the military tech that has been created globally.
So instead of developing
Just to be logically
technology to automate mining, you're arguing that we should stay here and continue to exploit human beings to mine rare earth elements that are being
That's
depleted right now?
incorrect. You're arguing for that with your plan by suggesting we do the same thing on another planet.
No, you missed that it was automated.
Who builds these robots?
Other robots?
That's all the time we have.
Thank you, Nick. All right. I'm going to make this very simple. Space militarism is not an issue. One aggressive satellite, one anti-satellite missile shouldn't stop us from advancing our technology to mitigate climate change. This is a try or die situation. And what the negative has been arguing this entire debate is that we should sit here and wait and continue to fight climate change with the finite resources that we have here on Earth. As we have shown, that's not possible. The rare earth elements needed for green technology are becoming more scarce by the minute. Under the negations plan, we may be able to develop new technology to mitigate climate change, but the resources in order to ensure the proliferation of this technology will be gone. And the human species will go extinct when we can no longer produce the technology to mitigate climate change. Under the affirmatives plan, we will develop technology to mitigate the effects of climate change, and we will ensure that we have the resources to continue to do so. The affirmatives plan solves the problem not only of depleting resources, ensuring that we have the resources to develop more green tech, but that we actually have the resources to make sure that we can continue to fight climate change. As we have shown, the advantages of our plan compound one another. A, we get new technology to fight climate change, and we get the resources to create that new technology. B, we attract more people into STEM-related careers, which in turn enhance and advance our technology to fight climate change. Not only that, but as my partner explained, for every $1 that is spent on NASA, $10 are added to the United States economy. Our plan betters people's lives not only by mitigating the effects of climate change, but by putting money into the pockets of working Americans. The time to act is now. Climate change is real, and the effects are devastating. If we wait, or if we limit ourselves, like the negation argues, to this earth and ignore the fact that we are depleting the resources needed to develop climate mitigating technology, the human species will go extinct in 100 years. You must vote for the affirmative to ensure that we explore every option, to ensure that we develop new green technology, and to ensure we have the resources in regards to both people and rare earth elements to produce the technology to fight climate change. A vote for negation is a vote for extinction. Nobody wants human extinction. Maybe the negative does. Vote affirmative, otherwise you are condemning our species to a drawn-out, devastating, dehumanizing demise. Thank you.